Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Following Science, the podcast where we explore the fascinating intersections of biology, technology, and the human experience. I'm your host, Rutu Parl, and today we are diving into an incredibly exciting and increasingly important topic: how microbes, yes, those tiny invisible organisms that live inside and on us, are deeply connected to the way we age. Now, we often think about aging in terms of wrinkles, gray hair, or aching joints. I know I do. But beneath the surface, there's a whole world of microorganisms that may hold the key to how we grow older and potentially how we can age more healthily. From gut health to brain function, cardiovascular health, and even immune system performance, our microbiome plays a far bigger role in the aging process than we might realize. Today, we'll break down the basics of the microbiome, explore how it changes as we age, and dive into what science tells us about microbiome's role in age-related diseases. Finally, we'll touch on some emerging research and intersections that could revolutionize how we approach aging in the future. Now, let's start with the basics. What is the microbiome? You've probably heard this term being tossed around in the health circles, and for good reason. Our microbiome is essentially a community of microorganisms, bacteria, viruses, fungi, archaea, and even some protozoa that live in and on us. Now, while this might seem a little gross at first, and yes, we're literally covered in bacteria, which is why it might weird you out, but these tiny creatures are vital for our survival. In fact, we wouldn't last very long without them. So I guess you could say the friend that's always with you is your microbiome. Now moving on, the most well-known microbiome is the one in our gut, specifically the intestines. But we have distinct microbiomes in other places too, on our skin, in our mouths, and even in our lungs. All of these microbiomes play unique roles in maintaining various aspects of our health. But for today's episode, we'll focus mostly on the gut microbiome, since it's where a lot of the aging-related research has been concentrated. So what exactly do these microbes do? Let's talk about some of their main functions. First and foremost, they help with digestion. The food we eat isn't always easy for our bodies to break down on its own, so certain microbes help us digest complex carbohydrates, fiber, and other compounds that we wouldn't otherwise be able to process. These microbes ferment fiber, producing short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which is extremely important for our gut health and even has anti-inflammatory properties. Then there's the immune system. Believe it or not, around 70% of our immune system resides in our gut. The microbiome helps train our immune cells, teaching them how to differentiate between harmful pathogens and harmless substances. This is why a healthy microbiome is so essential for preventing diseases, including autoimmune conditions and infections. Lastly, the microbiome plays a surprising role in our mood and mental health. This is due to what's called the gut-brain axis, a two-way communication system between the gut and the brain. Gut bacteria can actually produce neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, which are key players in regulating mood, sleep, and even cognitive function. So it's no exaggeration to say that a healthy gut can lead to a happier and clearer mind. Now let's zoom in on an important concept: microbial diversity. Just like how biodiversity is crucial to maintaining healthy ecosystems in nature, a diverse microbiome is crucial for our health. When we have a wide variety of different bacteria species in our gut, each playing its own role, things run smoothly. But when that diversity declines, as it often does with our poor diet, stress, antibiotics, or aging, we start to see problems. One common analogy is to think of the gut as a rainforest. In a thriving, biodiverse rainforest, different species of plants, animals, and insects all play a role in maintaining the balance of the ecosystem. If certain species disappear, the ecosystem can start to collapse. The same goes for the microbiome. A loss of diversity can lead to an imbalance, or what scientists call dysbiosis, which is then linked to a wide variety of health issues, including inflammation, obesity, and even mental health disorders like depression and anxiety. So how does this all tie into aging, Rutu? You might be wondering. Well, let's get right into it. Because as we get older, the composition of our microbiome begins to change. This is the part of the natural aging process, so don't be worried about it. but remember that this change might not always be a good thing. One of the most significant changes is a reduction of microbial diversity. Remember that rainforest analogy? Well, as we age, the diversity of our microbiome decreases, making our bodies more vulnerable to disease and inflammation. So let's break it down a little more. First, let's talk about what happens to microbial diversity over the course of our lives. In early childhood, especially if you are breastfed, your microbiome is typically rich and diverse. As you grow up, environmental factors like diet, antibiotics, and exposure to different microbes continue to shape your microbiome. Now, before we go into the Middle Ages, let me mention something. When we are a child and we just come out, like when we're in our mother's stomach, we're really not surrounded by any microbes. We don't have like a microbiome and we're not affected by anything. The actual affected by the microbiome starts in the birth canal when the mother is actually giving birth, and then it continues on when the mother breastfeeds the child. And this is actually really good for the child because it equips them with diverse microbiomes, which is just going to help them be stronger in the future. Now let's move on to the Middle Ages. Around the Middle Ages, things begin to shift. As we reach our 50s and 60s, studies showed that we start to lose some of that diversity. The reasons are complex, such as dietary changes, decreased physical activity, more frequent use of medications like antibiotics, and the natural decline of our immune system all contribute to this reduction. Now, this loss of microbial diversity isn't just a marker of aging. It's actually linked to several age-related health issues. For instance, a less diverse microbiome is associated with increased inflammation, which plays a key role in many chronic diseases. We also see links between microbiome changes and diseases like Alzheimer's, cardiovascular problems, and metabolic disorders. Now, the gut itself undergoes physical changes as we age, which in turn affects the microbiome. For example, older adults tend to experience a slowdown in gut mobility, or rather motility, meaning that food moves more slowly through the digestive system. This can lead to constipation and create an environment where harmful bacteria can overgrow, leading to imbalances. On top of that, the gut barrier, which acts like a gatekeeper, allows nutrients to pass through while keeping harmful substances out, becoming more permeable as we age. Now, this is often referred to as the leaky gut. I know, it's not a name that sounds really fun to hear because the consequences of it aren't that fun. Now, when the gut barrier is compromised, harmful bacteria and toxins can enter the bloodstream, triggering chronic inflammation. And as we know, chronic inflammation is a major driver of aging and age-related diseases, from arthritis to heart disease. Now, one factor we can't overlook is medication. Older adults tend to take more medications, including antibiotics, which can significantly disrupt the microbiome. Antibiotics don't just kill harmful bacteria, but they also wipe out beneficial bacteria, leaving the gut vulnerable to imbalances. Other common medications like proton pump inhibitors for acid reflux or NSAIDs can also alter the gut environment in ways that harm microbial diversity. But it's not all doom and gloom. There are things we can do to mitigate some of these changes, which I'll dive into later in the episode. Now, what's the real-world impact of these microbial changes? Let's look at how microbiome is linked to some of the most common age-related diseases. Who knows, you might even relate to some of them. No, I'm just kidding. I know all of y'all's microbiomes are super diverse. Now, let's go and talk about inflammation first, which is often referred to as the silent killer when it comes to aging. Chronic low-grade inflammation, or inflammaging, is increasingly recognized as a hallmark of the aging process. And it turns out our microbes play a big role in regulating inflammation. Certain gut bacteria produce substances that help control inflammation. For example, those short-chain fatty acids I mentioned earlier, like butyriate, which I still don't know how to say properly, not only keep the gut lining healthy, but also have anti-inflammatory effects throughout the body. When we lose these beneficial bacteria, inflammation levels can rise, contributing to conditions like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and even some cancers. Now, let's talk about the connection between gut microbes and brain health, a fascinating and growing area of research. The gut-brain axis, which I mentioned earlier, is a communication pathway between the gut and the brain. And believe it or not, our gut microbes can influence everything from mood to cognitive decline. For example, studies have shown that individuals with Alzheimer's disease often have a very different gut microbiome composition compared to healthy individuals of the same age. In fact, certain types of bacteria that produce inflammatory compounds are more prevalent in people with neurodegenerative diseases. While we're still learning exactly how this works, it's a thought that these bacteria could contribute to brain inflammation, which is a key feature of Alzheimer's and other cognitive disorders. Now, the microbiome also plays a surprising role in heart health. Certain gut bacteria produce a compound called TMAO, which I'm not going to say because it's really, really long, and also I'm pretty sure I'm going to butcher the term, but TMAO has been linked to a higher risk of heart disease. This TMAO seems to promote the buildup of cholesterol in the arteritis, contributing to atherosclerosis, a condition where the arteritis become clogged and can lead to heart attacks or strokes. But it's not all bad news. Other bacteria produce compounds that lower blood pressure and reduce inflammation. So maintaining a healthy, balanced microbiome could be the key factor in keeping your heart healthy as you age. Now, before we move on, I just want to mention that a lot of us completely disregard the fact that our microbiome is so important to us. In fact, they don't take care of the microbiome. And one of the really big ways you can take care of your microbiome is by eating healthy. And now I know this seems very common because, wow, everybody's telling you to eat healthy, but it's not for the reasons that you might think. Scientifically, having a really diverse and good microbiome can be so beneficial to you in so many ways because it's really important to you in every aspect of your lives, whether that's in preventing aging, whether that's in preventing diseases, whether it's just protecting you and creating that protective barrier. It's so important. So, what can we do about all of this? Are there ways to slow or even reverse some of these age-related changes to the microbiome? And the answer might be yes, thanks to some exciting new research, which we're going to go into next. Now, one of the biggest ways we can influence our microbiome is through diet. Just like I mentioned before, a diverse, fiber-rich diet has been shown to promote a healthy microbiome. Foods like fruit, vegetables, legumes, and whole grains all contain different types of fiber that feed beneficial bacteria. On the flip side, and of course there's always a flip side, a diet high in processed foods and sugars can reduce microbial diversity and promote the growth of harmful bacteria. In one study, researchers found that older adults who followed a Mediterranean diet, a diet rich in fruits, vegetables, healthy fats, and whole grains, had better microbiome health, which was linked to slower cognitive decline and lower inflammation levels. So what we eat definitely does have a direct impact on how we age. So again, if you want to look young on those pictures, then make sure you have a really good diet. Now, moving on, let's talk about probiotics and prebiotics, which are another area of interest. Now, probiotics are supplements or foods that contain live beneficial bacteria, which sounds weird to think about because you're literally eating that beneficial bacteria, which means that you're eating bacteria, which also, again, so weird to think about, but it's so beneficial for you. And then there's prebiotics, which are types of fiber that feed those bacteria specifically. Now, while the science is still evolving, there is some evidence to suggest that probiotic supplementation could help restore microbiome balance in older adults, potentially improving gut health and reducing inflammation. But it's important to note that not all probiotics are created equal, and they're not a magic bullet. What works for one person might not work for another, and because each of us have a unique microbiome, it is really important that we learn about personalized medicine, which we may eventually use to tailor probiotic treatments to individual microbiome profiles. Now, I'm going to talk about something completely fascinating to me because I recently found out about it, and I saw a whole webinar type of thing where somebody actually did this. And it's insane to me that people actually did it. But let's talk about fecal microbiota transplants, or FMT. Now, this is one of the most fascinating and somewhat controversial, as I like to think about it, interventions which is being studied. Now, this is exactly what it sounds like. Transplanting healthy donor stool, or poop, full of beneficial bacteria into the gut of someone with a unhealthy microbiome. Now, FMTs have been shown to be incredibly successful in treating conditions like difficile infections, but researchers are now looking into its potential for age-related conditions like inflammation and cognitive decline. And I know before they used to literally inject it into the person, but I think they now make you take a lot of pills for this treatment to work. But regardless, it still sounds gross. And we're still in the early ages of these treatments, and a lot of studies have shown promising results in animal models where FMT from younger mice into older mice improve their microbiome diversity and even reverse some age-related cognitive decline. It's still a long way from becoming a mainstream treatment for aging, but it's definitely a field to watch as we continue and go about it. Now, we've covered a lot of ground today, so let's wrap up with some practical takeaways, because you guys all know I'm so practical. Now, what can you do to support your microbiome as you age? First of all, eat a diverse diet. I literally cannot emphasize this enough. It is so important that you have a healthy diet and you're eating a food that are whole foods and rich in fiber like fruits, vegetables, legumes, and whole grains. Now, diversity in your diet encourages diversity in your microbiome, so make sure you eat it. Then, second, consider probiotics and prebiotics. While they're not a cure-all, including probiotic-rich foods like yogurt or kefir, it can help maintain a healthy gut, so you should definitely try it out. Third, stay active. I know what you're thinking, first the diet, then the stay active. Rude, you're just gonna make us healthy, aren't you? And the answer to that is yes, I am. Because regular physical activity has been shown to positively influence microbiome diversity, so staying active as you age can benefit both your gut and overall health. Fourth, avoid the overuse of antibiotics. While sometimes necessary, antibiotics can wipe out beneficial bacteria, so be mindful of their use. Don't ever use something in excess, and I think this is just a general advice, which I know we're talking about antibiotics and the microbiome, and I'm slowly veering off topic, but just don't do anything in excess or eat anything in overuse, because no matter how good it is, the first 2 times you eat it or the first 2 times you do it, it might not be good the 3rd time you do it. So don't overuse anything, good or bad. And fifth, lastly, manage stress. And I know this is easier said than done as somebody who's currently very stressed right now, but chronic stress can disrupt your microbiome, so finding ways to manage stress, whether through meditation, yoga, or simply spending time with loved ones, can help keep your gut healthy. I, for one, like to paint nails to make myself less stressed because it just makes me feel happier, and when I'm happier, I'm not stressed. Now, as I wrap up today's episode, I just want to thank you all for joining me here today. I hope you found this deep dive into the world of microbes and aging as fascinating as I did. I love learning about new treatments, especially the one with the fecal treatment and the poop, which is completely fascinating to me because I really want to know who found out about that and who actually thought of something like that for a solution. But yeah, here we are. Our microbiomes play such a crucial role in how we age, and as science continues to uncover more about this invisible ecosystem, we may see some truly revolutionary advances in the field of aging and longevity. And who knows, I might create another episode just for that. Now, of course, if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to Following Science on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to leave us a review. It really helps the show reach more curious minds like yours. I love hearing from you guys when you go and email me, so continue to do so. Until next time, I'm your host, Ruta Parle, and this has been Following Science.